is a young female journalist, conservative journalist by the name of Laura Loomer.
If America's men acted like Laura Loomer, our problems would be fixed in about 5 minutes.
Chained herself.
She chained her.
episode 110 of Loomer Unleashed. I'm your host, Laura Loomer. You may notice that we have a different setup tonight. It's because I am reporting live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, where I have been this week for a series of meetings and also on-the-ground coverage with Loomer Unleashed D.C. correspondent Charles Downs of all of these Marxist and Islamo-fascist protests that have really been sweeping the nation and also our nation's capital, particularly the Tesla takedown protests, which we're going to talk about tonight because, well, if you follow me on X, then you know that I am now being threatened with a lawsuit by the lawyers for the George Soros affiliated groups known as Hopewell Fund and the 1630 Fund for my documentation and my exposés of radical leftist groups like the Sunrise Movement that are directly organizing and participating in the violent protests at Tesla showrooms and Tesla charging stations across the country. We didn't have an episode of Loomer Unleashed earlier this week, precisely for the reason that I have been dealing with a lot of media appearances. You may have seen that my exclusive investigative reporting that I was first to report on here at Loomer Unleashed last week regarding Hunter Biden and his security detail, his Secret Service protection detail in South Africa, ended up getting the attention of President Trump, and I can proudly report tonight that my exclusive independent reporting from South Africa convinced President Trump to strip Hunter Biden and his sister Ashley Biden of their Secret Service protection. As I reported here on Loomer Unleashed, through our on-the-ground investigation in South Africa, Hunter Biden fled the country to dodge a deposition in his laptop case against Garrett Ziegler of the Marco Polo Group. And so Hunter Biden was caught by Loomer Unleashed on the ground with photographic evidence in Cape Town, South Africa, which, as you know, maybe you don't know, I don't know, I've been to Cape Town, and one thing I can tell you is that it's not a cheap place to visit. And Hunter Biden signed a declaration with the court on March 5th of 2025, telling a federal court in Los Angeles that he is dead broke. And he said that, my home and my paintings all burned down in Malibu. I have no money, but it looks like he has enough money to flee the country to Cape Town, South Africa for a 3-month-long vacation. So Loomer Unleashed tracked him all the way to South Africa, and we got photos that show him walking around a very expensive neighborhood in South Africa with his Secret Service detail. As we exclusively reported here you go, you can see the photo there. Hunter Biden has a 12-agent per day detail with the Secret Service and 6 more on backup. So that's a total of 18 agents. And his sister Ashley has a 13-agent per day detail. And so this is an incredible abuse of taxpayer funds, given the fact that the Presidential Protection Act for former presidents states that the children of presidents who are older than 16 years old are not entitled to receive Secret Service protection. And, adding insult to injury, Hunter Biden was not only receiving this taxpayer-funded Secret Service protection after committing tax crimes, which he was pardoned for by his father, even though his father said for years that, I'm not going to pardon Hunter. I believe in law and order. We were lectured forever about how Donald Trump supposedly doesn't respect law and order. And then Joe Biden went and pardoned his own son on the way out of the White House. So on Monday, after President Trump was asked about my exclusive reporting, he ended up posting a message on True Social. We can get that up on the screen here, stating that he is effective immediately revoking Hunter Biden and Ashley Biden's Secret Service protection. So that should save the American taxpayers millions of dollars per year. I think we can get that image up on the screen. And we also have the report here. President Trump terminates Hunter Biden's Secret Service protection after Laura Loomer's report about South Africa vacation. So you can scroll up and you can see that True Social post that was made on March 17th. And President Trump, of course, took a great insult to the fact that Hunter Biden was getting Secret Service protection in South Africa, because recently the Trump administration cracked down on eliminating aid to South Africa due to their egregious white genocide human rights violations, where the racist, openly black supremacist, racist president of South Africa has been inciting violent crimes against South African white farmers, who President Trump just recently said he is opening up asylum claims to. So perhaps we're going to see some South African white farmers try to apply for asylum here in the United States of America. Let's get the report up on the screen. President Trump terminates Hunter Biden's Secret Service protection after Laura Loomer's report about South African vacation. At the bottom of the articles in A block. It's pretty incredible. This is a pretty big scalp. You know, it's not every day that you get to say that your reporting led to the former president's son having his entire Secret Service detail revoked. But this obviously was a very exciting scalp here. And additionally, you know, I was able to confirm that Hunter Biden was vacationing in South Africa, having dinner with Ellen DeGeneres. And so while he was getting protected by Secret Service, Ellen DeGeneres, this happened actually the same day that President Trump revoked the Secret Service. I put this out hours before President Trump issued his statement. Hunter Biden was actually in South Africa with Ellen DeGeneres, who is in South Africa with her wife, Portia de Rossi, who I guess they chartered a safari for the rich and famous in South Africa. You can see the video that I gathered from Ellen's Instagram page right there. She's on a very expensive safari. And trust me when I tell you that these safaris are not cheap. I went to South Africa and I wanted to go on a safari, but it was a little bit out of my budget. I had to do the safari for the common man, right? Where they take you out for a little bit, like a 4-hour drive in the protected area there. But usually these safaris cost about $5,000 per day when you're doing the very expensive glamping safaris that Ellen DeGeneres and her wife were on. So again, Hunter Biden seems to be spending a lot of time and a lot of money in South Africa. This is behavior that people who are broke generally don't engage in. So I wonder now if all this evidence that I've gathered is going to be used. Actually, we know for a fact that Marco Polo and Garrett Ziegler plan on using the findings of my investigation in their legal complaint as they try to petition the court to get their legal fees reimbursed by Hunter Biden, who, of course, fled the country to dodge the deposition in their laptop lawsuit, which he now is trying to. It ended up getting dismissed with prejudice, so he can no longer file these lawsuits for defamation regarding his laptop against Marco Polo and Garrett Ziegler. So maybe Hunter Biden will be found to have perjured himself. And what do we know? Well, we know that this pardon that Joe Biden signed for his son, extending from crimes committed between January of 2014 all the way till December of 2024, a nearly decade-long pardon, which is quite unusual, you know, like it basically spans an entire 10-year time frame. It does not include this alleged act of perjury committed in March of 2025 while Hunter Biden was in South Africa, claiming that he is broke. Additionally, I was able to confirm through my exclusive reporting on the ground that Hunter Biden is using U.S. State Department vehicles as his transportation. So not only does this scandal involve the Secret Service providing protection for Hunter Biden while he dodges a deposition, but you can see here on the screen that Hunter Biden also has been using vehicles that are registered to the U.S. Embassy in South Africa. We were able to get photographs of the vehicles parked outside of the residence that he's staying at in South Africa in Cape Town. We ran the plates and we found, you can see it says registered to Embassy of America. So quite a waste of U.S. taxpayer funds through the State Department and also the United States Secret Service. I can confirm that I reached out to Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, and I asked him for comment on this matter, and he told me that those vehicles were being used as part of the protection detail for Hunter Biden and that the vehicles are now being terminated for use by Hunter Biden, by the State Department. So we'll have to see if that ends up being true. We're going to be following up with our on-the-ground investigation in South Africa to see if the claim by the Trump administration that the end of the protection was done effective immediately. We're going to be reporting back with those details. But Marco Rubio did give me his word when I asked him about those State Department vehicles, and he told me that the use of those vehicles should also now be terminated since President Trump terminated and revoked Hunter Biden's Secret Service details. So follow my account on X for updates in the coming days about whether or not the Secret Service protection has effectively been terminated. I want to get your comments on this. We have Loomer Unleashed DC correspondent Charles Downs here in the Rumble studio in Washington, D.C. with me tonight. Charles, what are your thoughts on this about Hunter Biden using taxpayer-funded Secret Service protection and the fact that it took an independent journalist like myself to have to track Hunter Biden all the way to South Africa to get his taxpayer-funded Secret Service detail revoked?
I think, Laura, that it just proves that the deep state's a real threat and a real thing, because President Trump seems to be on a lot of things in terms of draining the swamp and stopping the deep state, but still, this was able to slip through. And it shows how corrupt the media is, especially the mainstream media. I find it hard to believe CNN, MSNBC, or any of those outlets didn't know or have an idea that Hunter Biden was still receiving Secret Service protection.
Well, it just goes to show you how deep the deep state really is. And it makes you wonder. And look, I know that I've met the new Secret Service director, Sean Curran. Met him on the Trump campaign. Very nice guy. But you just have to ask yourself, how is it that nobody at Secret Service said, you know what, it's a new administration and the rules on the books show that we don't need to be providing Secret Service protection for the children of former presidents once they are above the age of 16 years old. Let's terminate this, especially in the era of Doge, where we're talking about waste, fraud, and abuse. It just kind of seems like an egregious oversight, don't you think?
Yeah, if I had to bet on it, I bet you someone didn't tell the new Secret Service director what was going on in terms of Hunter Biden. Whether they were just incompetent or malicious, who knows? But like I said, if I had to bet on it, I bet you someone was supposed to tell the new Secret Service director where their agents are going, and they didn't report it correctly. And I think getting to the bottom of the reason why, if that's the case, is really critical. Because like I said, it just shows, even when you take over agencies and departments, the deep state can still push back, and they're not listening to their, I guess, boss, you could per se.
No, they're not listening. And so it's going to be really interesting once we check back in a couple of days to see if the Secret Service protection has not been dissolved.
Oh yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And
because they told President Trump that they were going to comply with it. The spokesperson, who unfortunately from the Secret Service has carried over from the former administration, an individual who worked with the former Secret Service director who you and I have confronted,
oh, yes,
Kim Cheadle, of course. It makes you wonder why they do not have a new Secret Service spokesperson, but it looks like the agency itself is still being plagued with incompetence. And I'm hoping that Sean Curran, under his new leadership at the Secret Service, can try to clean house or implement some higher standards for some of these holdovers who are not political appointees, who unfortunately cannot just be fired or reassigned. So I think that we're going to have to see whether or not the Secret Service spokesman, I'm not talking about the Secret Service director, I'm talking about the Secret Service spokesman, is going to comply with the orders of the new Trump administration.
Yeah, if I were President Trump and friends, I would launch an investigation as to how Hunter Biden still had Secret Service protection and why
and
wasn't
Ashley
they
Biden
informed.
too.
And Ashley Biden too.
Because it's not like they're having this protection just outside of their homes. They're on luxury vacations. And it's kind of egregious that Hunter Biden is literally using the protection of the United States Secret Service to dodge the federal courts in Los Angeles. This is a guy who was engaged in lawfare with Garrett Ziegler's group, Marco Polo, accusing him of defamation because of the Hunter Biden laptop that Garrett Ziegler published. And, you just have to ask yourself, how is it that these federal agencies that are paid for by taxpayers can be used and complicit with helping Hunter Biden avoid the courts out of the country? He literally fled the country. There's now speculation about whether or not his affidavit and his declaration with the courts, which have to be notarized, by the way, was submitted while he was out of the country, which would actually present a legal issue.
And I think what's crazy too is the Secret Service is one of the agencies that the president has a pretty strong control over. So if this can happen within that agency, imagine these huge bureaucracies around Washington, D.C. I have a sneaky suspicion a lot of people in HUD probably aren't following Scott Turner's directives. And that's why I think Trump and friends should launch an investigation into this, I don't want to say Secret Service breakdown, that's the correct wording, but I guess how Hunter Biden still had it, because that could lead on to other agencies where other people aren't following their directives and orders, which is obviously happening here in DC because sadly these unelected bureaucrats, they think they're in charge. They don't think the president and President Trump's political appointees are in charge. They think they are because for some reason they think they're smarter. It's actually remarkable. I'm sure we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, well, a lot of President Trump's own staff seem to think that they're smarter than the president, too, because I actually released this investigative exclusive report last Friday, and the president was asked about it on Monday while he was, I believe, going to some event in Washington, D.C. He was asked about it by a reporter, and we can go ahead and play that clip of President Trump being asked about the Hunter story. And it's kind of strange because in the clip, President Trump said that this was the first time he was hearing about it when I had actually sent the report to the White House and the White House press team last week. So it kind of like begs the question, are there gatekeepers within the Trump administration who are now trying to hide information from President Trump? Because how is it that President Trump, and I'm grateful that President Trump revoked the Secret Service detail, but how is it that this took 4 days to have happen when it could have been done on a Friday afternoon instead of a Monday afternoon due to people hiding information from the President of the United States? It's not like nobody saw it. My report had millions of views. It has almost 20 million views on X alone. And so I also have the direct cell phone numbers for every single one of President Trump's advisors. And I know for a fact that they all received it because I personally sent it to all of them on Friday. So it makes me wonder, how is it that President Trump only just heard about this? Like, who is hiding information at the White House from President Trump?
Yeah, and that's why I think there should be an investigation into all of this, because the gatekeeping aspect too. Now is not the time to be gatekeeping in the White House. The left is literally, we'll talk about this later, I guess,
and you can tell it's almost like they just don't want me to get credit for it. And look, I'm not trying to be antagonistic with members of President Trump's own administration, but this was clearly the biggest story all week. I mean, they're still talking about it. It was in the New York Times this morning, too, and they're still bitching about, it's political, and, this is such a retaliatory effort against the Bidens. And the fact of the matter is that the Trump administration could have replied to me privately, and they could have actually taken a commanding position on this instead of being caught off guard by a reporter when President Trump was at an event. They could have actually been the one to issue the statement and lead instead of having to be reactive, right? It could have been a proactive response instead of reactive. And I'm not trying to criticize the Trump administration, but again, like, these are daily costs accrued by the U.S. taxpayers. And so it just makes you wonder who on the inside of the White House is gatekeeping this information from President Trump, because that was an issue during the first Trump administration. And look, I know that it's no surprise that some of President Trump's staff love me and some of them do not like me. It's a point of contention amongst his staff, I've been told, where you have people who are Team Loomer and then you have people who are anti-Loomer. We saw this on the campaign trail where people who worked on the campaign constantly tried to plant stories about me and leak stories about me anytime I was in the vicinity of the president. But at the end of the day, people need to put their egos aside and they need to put their spite for me aside and say, hey, this is important information and it needs to get to the president of the United States. So let's go ahead and play this clip just so people can see firsthand that I'm not exaggerating about this, and you can see firsthand this kind of weird response that President Trump had to it. And look, obviously he reacted very promptly, but it makes me wonder, would he have done this on Friday afternoon had he actually been alerted to it on Friday afternoon when I first broke the story on my Twitter account? Let's go ahead and play the clip.
Sir, there were 18 Secret Service agents protecting Hunter Biden in South Africa this weekend. Who's paying for that, and do you plan to revoke the Secret Service protection?
Well, we have done that with many. I would say if there are 18 with Hunter Biden, that will be something I'll look at this afternoon, okay?
Sure.
I just heard about it for the first time. So you have 18 Secret Service going, where is he exactly?
In South Africa.
In South Africa. And South Africa, is on a watch list, that. Because what they're doing to people is brutal. And I've stopped having money go to South Africa, that. Billions of dollars. So he's in South Africa. That's very interesting. All right, I'm going to take a look at that. Thank you very much.
So, I don't understand how he could have had that reaction. I sent it on Friday. And again, I'm not blaming the president of the United States, but somebody in the staff is clearly gatekeeping. Somebody is gatekeeping and they know who they are. So hopefully this behavior changes, because I personally think that it's just totally unacceptable for people who work for the president of the United States to be gatekeeping information like this from him. Totally inappropriate.
Well, I agree. And whoever is gatekeeping, they're personally hurting themselves because...
Well, they're hurting Trump.
Yeah, and they're hurting Trump and themselves.
They're hurting,
That's the
they're
craziest
hurting
part,
the American
too.
people, too. We're paying for this shit, you know? We're the ones paying for this bullshit Secret Service protection.
Yeah, it's disgusting and it's disturbing. And like I said earlier, now is not the time to be gatekeeping because I know we just had an election, but 2026 will be up before we know it. And if y'all think the left is going to go down quietly in the 2026 midterms, you have something else coming because we'll get into it in the later blocks with these protesters. But it seems like the congressional Democrats and their funders and their protesters have some pretty crazy stuff planned over the next year and a half.
Absolutely. I want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's episode of Loomer Unleashed, and that, of course, is the Licorice Guy. Indulge in the sweet old-fashioned goodness of licorice with the Licorice Guy, a family-owned business that's been perfecting this classic treat for over a decade. They offer a range of traditional and fun flavors, all made with care and shipped fresh to your door. Whether you're a lifelong licorice lover like I am, or you're just craving something unique, the Licorice Guy has you covered with their premium quality and unbeatable taste. It's so delicious that you can taste the difference. Their soft, chewy licorice is also perfect for Easter. As you know, Easter's coming up, so brighten your Easter baskets with their vibrant, flavorful licorice, or set out a bowl as a festive treat for family and friends. It's a sweet way to add a little extra joy to your holiday celebrations. Right now, you can stock up on sweets and save big. Head on over to thelicorishguy.com/discount/Laura and use code Laura at checkout to get 15% off your entire order. Or just click the link in the description below to have your discount applied automatically. From classic black licorice, which is my favorite, to fruity twists, each purchase supports a small American business committed to quality and craftsmanship. So head on over to thelicorishguy.com/discount/Laura, licorishguy.com/discount/Laura, and grab your favorite flavors and join me in backing some of the hardworking people who keep our country thriving. When you purchase licorice from the Licorice Guy, you are supporting American manufacturing and a small American business. Again, the website is licorishguy.com/discount/Laura. Use code Laura at checkout for 15% off. All right, moving on now. We have this Judge Boasberg, who, of course, is another one of these judges. He's the chief justice here, chief judge here in the D.C. Circuit, and Judge Boasberg has issued an order against a restraining order against the Trump administration and their deportation order of violent criminal illegal aliens, but not just any criminal illegal aliens. We're talking about the Tren de Aragua gang members from Venezuela who President Trump wanted to ship to Guantanamo Bay and also ship out of the country to places like El Salvador, where El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele has agreed to house them in their new state-of-the-art lockdown facility known as CCOT. Now, everybody's talking about how outrageous it is that we are witnessing a judicial coup in our country, where a lot of these judges now seem to think that they have more power and more authority than the president of the United States. I mean, what's the point of even having elections in our country? What's the point of even having a president of the United States if all of these judges are just able to, with a swipe of a pen, strike down everything that the Trump administration is doing with executive order?
No, it's crazy. And what's really crazy about all this, Laura, is you were in the forefront leading this. Even before President Trump was reelected, judges thought they knew better than the American people. Look at our friend from New York, Judge Merchan, and everything he did. He literally thought he attempted to jail the president of the United States before an election because he believed that he knew better than the American people. And it's just a continuance of that. And it's really crazy, but it's not shocking.
Because, you know, Judge Merchan's daughter was making millions of dollars during the election season while representing pro-indictment and pro-impeachment Democrats who were literally fundraising while utilizing her company to send out email copy as it related to the indictment and the felony charges against President Trump while her father was overseeing the trial. And so it's an egregious conflict of interest, something that represents a banana republic justice system and also a weaponized DOJ in our country. And we're seeing the same thing now here in the case of Judge Boasberg. Another exclusive story that I reported on this week is the fact that Judge Boasberg has a daughter named Catherine Boasberg, who is an employee of a group called Partners for Justice, which is a 501c3 nonprofit, tax exempt organization that uses their position to lobby on behalf of, and when I say lobby, I mean advocate on behalf of criminal illegal aliens and incarcerated individuals. And in this case, her employer has actually made videos and posts on their social media. We're going to show you videos from the founder of the organization momentarily. The founder's name is Emily Galvin Almanza, making the argument that President Trump's orders for deportation are racist, making the argument that laws to crack down on gang members are racist because 99% of people incarcerated in America for gang crimes are Black or Hispanic individuals. Because, we've imported millions of illegal aliens into our country who are gangbangers. And so, of course, there's going to be a disproportionate amount of Black and Hispanic individuals. We're not importing white people into this country. The people that are coming in from third world nations are minorities. They are brown and they are Black. They are Hispanic individuals from these very violent gang organizations, these transnational gangs, the cartels from Mexico and groups like Mara Salvatrucha, MS-13 from El Salvador, or Tren de Aragua from Venezuela. So you have a lot of these groups that have now been designated as foreign international terrorist organizations. President Trump has officially declared the cartels as terrorist organizations, Tren de Agua, MS-13 as violent international terrorist organizations. And these are the types of organizations that the employer of Judge Boasberg's daughter is advocating. What are your thoughts on this and the fact that Judge Boasberg failed to identify and disclose this massive conflict of interest while reviewing the case brought forth by the Trump administration?
Well, it clearly looks like the judge loves open borders, and he's always loved open borders, because usually how the profession your child chooses kind of has an impact on the parents. So the fact that his daughter chose to work for a pro-open borders organization, I think really tells a lot about their family values. So I think maybe they're committed, no, we got to keep these borders open. And what's even more messed up is, even though this guy lives in D.C., there are sections in D.C., like Georgetown, or neighborhoods in Arlington and Alexandria, where a lot of these elite Democrats live. Basically, they're gated, or they're so far up a hill, they don't need to be gated, because people like gang members and illegal immigrants would never even dream of going into these neighborhoods. So these people don't even have to put up with the consequences of their actions, which makes it even more disgusting in my mind. Is they're trying to, it's what the left always does. Rules for thee, but not for me. Oh, you guys got to live with gang members and illegal immigrants while I live in my nice, we don't know where he lives, but uppity scale Georgetown neighborhood where no gang members and illegal immigrants in sight, all multi-million-dollar to billion-dollar homes, and sucks for everyone else. I think that's what makes it
right. And you made a good point that a lot of times kids are oftentimes inspired by their own parents to engage in the professions that they pursue. And in this case, she is working for an organization that provides legal advocacy work for these criminal illegal aliens and incarcerated individuals, kind of the riffraff of our society. And so I want to go ahead. Also, too, I should mention that the daughter is a radical leftist. She has pronouns in her bio, and we can go ahead and get that screenshot back up. You can see from her bio on the website from Partners for Justice that she has her pronouns in her professional bio, which indicates her affinity to the radical left, because conservatives are not putting pronouns in their bios. We just do not engage in that type of insane behavior. Let's go ahead and play clip number 2 of Emily Galvin Almanza, who is the founder of Partners for Justice. And this woman, of course, is the employer of Judge Boasberg's daughter, talking about gang laws. And then you're going to see from the way this woman talks about gang laws how it's such a massive conflict of interest, because when you realize that Tren de Aragua are Venezuelan gang members and President Trump is trying to deport these individuals, and the judge is issuing a restraining order on these deportation flights, trying to prevent the foreign deportation. When I say foreign deportation, I'm also talking about repatriation, but also the foreign imprisonment, because in some countries where, they have socialist governments or communist governments, or there's a lot of political violence or political conflict like Venezuela, and Maduro's not exactly a very trustworthy individual, we can't really trust that they're going to incarcerate these individuals. And so that's why President Trump wanted to have these foreign agreements with places like El Salvador, where they have agreed to house the worst offenders, and also in Guantanamo Bay, in our facility that houses thousands of these worst offenders, because we cannot trust that if they are repatriated, that they will be kept in the prisons, and we do not want these terrorists engaging in more murders or rapes or crimes or drug dealing as they did here on U.S. soil. And so that is what Judge Boasberg is saying is unconstitutional. I don't really understand how it's unconstitutional to repatriate or deport foreign terrorists who are committing crimes on U.S. soil. These are not U.S. citizens. They are not entitled to rights on U.S. soil. But you are going to understand this mental disease, the woke mind virus, when you see how his daughter's employer is talking on video, and it makes you wonder, why did the judge not disclose this? We need more legal aliens in our country in order for groups like Partners for Justice to have clientele. And so if you deport the criminal illegal aliens and you start jailing people and you start making it harder for individuals to be released from prison, then people like Emily and the judge's daughter, Catherine Boasberg, are going to not have as much resources to do their job, because people are going to realize how problematic groups like Partners for Justice are for having safety in America, making America safe again, which is a pivotal policy platform for President Trump, which requires cracking down on closed borders and cracking down on mass deportations of these criminal illegal alien invaders who are now classified as terrorists. So let's go ahead and play this video from Emily Galvin Almanza, who is the founder of Partners for Justice, which is the employer of Judge Boasberg's daughter, Catherine.
It's your weekly video, and today I'm going to tell you about a legal loophole that lets prosecutors use different rules of evidence in court when they are prosecuting specific, usually Black or brown people. Here's what I mean. Most places around the country have some kind of gang law at this point. And a lot of these gang laws are really loosey-goosey. They basically define a gang as like any 2 or more or 3 or more people who have any kind of unifying symbol who commit a kind of crime together. Now, when you think of how teenagers are and how often kids have unified, how often did we all draw that weird S in our notebooks? And I don't know, like shoplift candy, whatever. The point is, these laws can be very broadly applied because they are very, very vague. Who are they applied to? When we look at databases, for example, New York's gang database, it becomes apparent that these laws are almost exclusively applied to people of color. So for example, in New York, 99% of people in the gang database are not white. This is really significant because what gang law is really intended to do is prosecute groups of people for doing crimes together, right? We actually already have laws for that. The law of conspiracy, for example, is intended to prosecute groups of people who do a crime together. But conspiracy actually requires prosecutors to do the work of proving that the people had a common scheme and that they actually took material steps towards completion of their scheme. Gang law? They can just claim that people are all in the same gang, and so whatever crime one of them does, the other ones must have wanted to do too, and therefore be culpable for. This opens the door to prosecutors using evidence in court that they would never be allowed to use in any other context. So for example, if I'm accused of a crime and I am saying, hey, I'm completely innocent of this crime, I did not do this. Most of the time, prosecutors are not allowed to introduce evidence that my friend committed a whole bunch of crimes and kind of imply to the jury that if my friend did a whole bunch of crimes, I must be a crappy person who does crimes too. But in gang cases, that's exactly what they're allowed to do, which is essentially a totally huge departure from the normal rules of evidence, being applied only to Black and brown people, which makes them more likely to be convicted because it's much easier to bias juries when you can say, hey, this person's friends are crappy. And then they are subjected to harsher penalties because gang crimes also confirm more time in prison.
It's just totally insane. I love how she just says, oh, how many times did we all, I don't know, steal candy? I didn't do that. I didn't shoplift as a teenager. She's trying to normalize criminal behavior and act like, it's totally normal. Everybody's a criminal. Everybody steals, right?
Yeah, no, what's crazy is, I don't know, I don't have any proof on this, but I don't think illegal immigrant gangbangers are shoplifting candy on a daily basis. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's a pretty accurate statement to make. I don't know, Laura. It's just proof again, like I said earlier. These people say these crazy policies like, hey, you got to live with gangbangers and illegal immigrants, yet They live in their little gated communities or on top of a hill in Georgetown or Alexandria or Arlington, and they don't got to live with their consequences. And then they make crazy statements like that, like, oh, maybe just stealing some candy. That's such an absurd statement to make. Like I said, no illegal immigrant gangbanger stealing candy, but she doesn't know that because she doesn't have to live with illegal immigrant gangbangers because she runs
No,
a
they're
nice
raping people.
C3
They're raping 12-year-old girls. And
funded
they're,
by the left. So
yeah, they're raping people and they're killing police officers and they're stabbing people. They're having shootouts. They're bringing fentanyl into our country. It's a lot worse than shoplifting some candy, like some Skittles, right? What does she think these people are? A little mini Trayvon Martins?
and that's what she thinks. Like, they're just stealing candy, you know. They're just going to your local Walmart and shoplifting. That's it. Come on, guys, calm down.
They're just a bunch of dindu nothings, you know. They're just a bunch of good hombres who are carrying Arizona iced tea and a bag of Skittles with them.
Now,
I mean, where have we heard this narrative before?
oh yeah, I mean, literally BLM.
I mean, this is the same narrative that they tried to tell us about Black Lives Matter and these, you know, young criminal, you know, black men who are engaged in criminal activity.
George Floyd.
Acting like they didn't do anything wrong when actually if you roll the police cameras or you look at their records and you come to find out that, oh, they have a rap sheet. Oh, they shoplifted. Oh, they attacked police officers. Oh, he didn't actually die from police brutality. He died from a fentanyl overdose. And they're trying to use the same mentality with illegal aliens. It's like a BLM movement for criminal illegal aliens, where they have all the bail bond funds and all of the criminal justice organizations to provide, you know, violent rioters and in Black Lives Matter and Antifa legal defense funds. They're now trying to do the same thing for illegal aliens. I mean, how sick and demented you have to be as a Democrat to be cheering on the judges, the federal judges, all of whom, you know, are appointed by Obama and Biden, blocking President Trump's executive orders to make America safe again. What are they protecting? Venezuelan gang members who raped and murdered Jocelyn Nungaray? Venezuelan gang members who raped and killed or almost raped Laken Riley? Tried to rape Laken Riley?
No, I mean, clearly there's not any support for this because the Democrat Party's approval ratings in like the 20%. So the only people supporting this are literally the people who we described. They live in New York, LA, DC, elite neighborhoods on top of a hill or around a gate, and they don't have to live with the consequences of the awful policies they either enact or financially support. And it's just telling. But these people are so crazy, they think they're in the right, and they're just never going to give up. And it just, like you said, it shows how demented these people truly are.
Yeah, and of course they're now in damage control mode because my tweet has been seen millions of times, and Mark Levin posted it, and I know that a lot of people are now talking about the judge's daughter thanks to my exclusive reporting. They don't exactly give me credit, but whatever. Mark Levin did, of course. That was nice of him. But in other cases, you have people like Jesse Waters who just run the story and don't even give me any credit. But Catherine Postberg is now freaking out following my expose, and she has since deleted her Instagram account and her LinkedIn. Let's go ahead and get that full screen, and you can see the video there. Unbelievable. Oh, page is not available because she's deleting. She's scrubbing.
It's like Judge Michon's daughter. He's crazy.
It's like a blueprint. They all do the same exact thing. Luckily, though, there are some members of Congress that aren't just taking this lying down. You have Congressman Brandon Gill out of Texas, who just introduced articles of impeachment against Judge Boasberg, and we can go ahead and get that tweet pulled up so people can see that. And Elon Musk he's announced that he's going to be giving maximum campaign donations to members of Congress who support the impeachment of judges. I don't know if you saw that as well, but thoughts on that?
That's really good news. And I think the left has something really sinister planned with all these activist judges. Obviously, they want to obstruct Trump as much as possible. But also, I think, from my view of covering the protests and what these elected Democrats from Capitol Hill are saying at these protests, I think their goal is to clog the court systems as much as possible. So one of these cases go to the Supreme Court, and then they can organize like a big rally. If you guys remember when Chuck Schumer, I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, stood on the steps of SCOTUS and was threatening judges, saying, I'll tell you, Kavanaugh, I'll tell you, Gorsuch, the whirlwind's going to come hit you or whatever. That's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to get these cases to SCOTUS so they can have, they're mostly peaceful protests in D.C. over the summer, and I guess unleash massive chaos. Just
yeah,
like
the summer of jihad.
Yeah. Plus illegal immigrants. Support's a thing. They don't care how they get the riots. They just want the riots. And they'll use whatever policy or whatever emotion to rile people up as much as possible. So
absolutely. And we have articles about this on loomer.com. Be sure that you're visiting loomer.com where you can read the article that we have and read the exclusive report yourself to see all the details. And also shout out to the Gateway Pundit who also covered this. They published an article. Laura Loomer covers an enormous taxpayer-funded conflict of interest involving Obama judge who ordered the Trump admin to stop deporting criminal illegal aliens mid-flight and his own daughter. So pretty explosive story there. Hopefully the Trump administration can use this to get a motion of recusal against Judge Boasberg.
I agree. And it's really great that Trump basically called for the judge's impeachment too on Truth Social after your report. It really shows it's making a really strong impact.
Absolutely. Before we move on to covering the pro-Hamas protests outside of the White House, I want to go ahead and thank the second sponsor of tonight's episode of Loomer Unleashed, Kirk Elliott Precious Metals. Don't let the green agenda tick you off and put you into a tailspin when you can take advantage of it. There is one commodity that is needed for solar power, battery power for electric vehicles, nuclear power, and is a vital component in missiles, torpedoes, and aerospace. Silver is needed for all of that, and recent developments are creating an insurmountable problem for all of these industries. Physical silver is running out, and when it runs out, these manufacturers will pay almost any price and simply pass it on to the consumer or taxpayer. But what if you were the person who owned what they will need? You can be that person by calling Kirk Elliott Precious Metals today to purchase physical silver. I've chosen Kirk Elliott Precious Metals because Dr. Kirk cares about you. He's trustworthy, honest, and he educates you before you make a purchase to make sure that it's the right decision for you. Dr. Kirk also only deals with low-cost bullion that doesn't carry high premiums, and what I love is that physical metals can even be placed in your IRA. So call Dr. Kirk Elliott today at 720-605-3900 or schedule a call online at kepm.com/Loomer. That's kepm.com/Loomer. They've created a specialized landing page for viewers of Loomer Unleashed, kepm.com/Loomer, and get out of the system with one of the safest and most private assets in the world. And when you contact Kirk Elliott, let them know that Laura Loomer sent you. We've heard a lot of great feedback from our viewers here at Loomer Unleashed dealing with Dr. Kirk Elliott and Kirk Elliott Precious Metals. So be sure to let them know that Laura Loomer sent you and let me know how it goes when you speak with them. All right, moving on now to the pro-Hamas protests happening outside of the White House this week. You've seen that a lot of these Palestinian Islamic radicals are also now engaging in activities with the radical left outside of the Tesla takedowns. These protests that are scheduled outside of the Tesla dealerships, the Tesla showrooms, and the Tesla supercharger locations. But what we now have is also these pro-Hamas and also pro-Houthi. Now that President Trump is striking the Houthis in Yemen, because the Houthis have been attacking the U.S. trade ships and they've been attacking military ships in international trading waters as well as Israeli ships as well. And so you have these protests that are now happening outside of the White House all this week. And Loomer Unleashed was on the scene to document it. Truly shocking imagery. I want to go ahead and play some of these clips. You have pro-Palestinian protesters shouting at Secret Service with megaphones in the face, and you literally have protesters waving Hamas flags. Hamas is a designated terrorist organization. So let's just go ahead and play clips 3, 4, and 5 back to back so that you can see the insanity. And look, President Trump's administration is cracking down on a lot of this jihadist activity. We've seen in the case of Mahmoud Khalil, who is a foreign national who is now facing a deportation order. And we have another activist judge in the name of Jesse Furman, who is a radical leftist, a Marxist Jew, whose family members are also involved in the Palestinian movement. Another blatant conflict of interest here, a judicial coup, as I call it. So let's just go ahead and show everybody how the barbarians are now at the gate. These radical Muslims are now protesting with pro-Hamas flags in a very brazen display of support for terrorist activity just outside the gates of the White House.
Viva, viva Palestina! Viva, viva Palestina! Viva, viva Palestina! Viva, viva! Because we will fight. Students of the world unite. Students of the world unite.
Why do you have a Hamas flag? Why not? Because you're in America? Hamas is a terrorist organization at Columbia University.
My name is Mahmoud Khalil and I'm a political prisoner. I'm writing to you from a detention facility in Louisiana where I wait to cold mornings and spend long days bearing witness to the quiet injustices underway against the great many people precluded from the protection. Our position in the Imperial Court grants us immense privilege to escalate against the Zionist entity and its lapdogs. Any repercussion we may face pale in comparison to resisting a genocide. As people of conscience, we must not forget the sacrifices our people have made. We must honor the valiant people of Gaza through our actions, and we vow to do more than just reject the imperialism our universities are so entrenched.
That's probably the biggest Hamas flag I've ever seen. And I actually confronted this woman. I asked her, why are you waving a Hamas flag as a terrorist flag outside of the White House? I mean, you are aware that that's a foreign terrorist organization. And I said, why are you waving the Hamas flag? And she goes, why not? And not only was she waving a Hamas flag, she was dressed in full military garb, which was very concerning because that's a militant display. She is showing and demonstrating that she's willing to engage in militant Islamic activity like Hamas. And she was also wearing the Hamas bandana that we see worn by Hamas militants in Gaza. So let's go ahead and play that clip as well. That is clip number 6. Hey, question for you. Why do you have a Hamas flag? Why do you have a Hamas flag?
Why not?
Because you're in America? Hamas is a terrorist organization?
My name is Mahmoud Khalil and I'm a political prisoner. I'm writing to you from a detention facility in Louisiana where I wait to cold mornings and spend long days bearing witness to the quiet injustices.
They're getting angry.
Totally crazy. And you were there with me, so you can testify to the fact that that was not the only woman. There were all these Muslims in the comments on X like, oh, you know, there's always one idiot there. You have no proof that there were a ton of Hamas supporters. We saw multiple people dressed in flags of martyrs. And when I say martyrs, they call it martyr flags, where they have these flags that have Hamas terrorists on them, and they drape themselves in these flags, and the Hamas terrorists are literally wearing Hamas bandanas. We saw at least 5 people who were wearing those flags, with the Hamas bandanas.
Yeah, so they're really bringing out their like violent activists now. And remember
and they
last
were also
month?
chanting Intifada Revolution.
Yeah.
They were calling for people to literally last night at the pro-Houthi protest, they were chanting about how they want to turn another ship around. So basically like, oh, Yemen, make us proud, turn another ship around. You know, like that is literally support for Islamic piracy. You're encouraging Islamic terrorists and the Houthi Islamic terrorists to engage in acts of piracy against Israeli and U.S. Ships.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And what's even more disgusting is, I don't know if y'all know this, but a lot of ships that go around Yemen, a lot of them are oil tankers, especially American oil tankers. So they're literally rooting for American oil tankers to be hit, which would cause a rise in energy prices, which would cause Americans to suffer. These people hate Trump and I guess hate Jewish people so much that they want to suffer and they want the American people to suffer. It just shows how deranged and disgusting they are. And by the way, elected Democrats are in on this. Remember in February, we got footage of Chuck Schumer speaking to a pro-Hamas crowd outside the White House as Netanyahu was in town. And remember, we were like, why are they doing this? Were they just trying to like corrupt the crowd so they look cool or something? But now it's trying to show why they were doing it. I think the Senate Democrats kind of had an idea that tensions are going to re-escalate, and they had an opportunity to act like they're peacemakers, even though they've had 4+ years of control of the White House to be peacemakers. But no, they're peacemakers now. And I think they saw an opportunity to basically use these pro-Hamas protesters to attack Trump and attack their anti-Trump agenda. And now it's going to be interesting here in DC because it's kind of two groups protesting, right? There's like the federal employees, the federal employee unions who march around Capitol Hill on a daily basis complaining that they had to quit their job because Elon Musk and Donald Trump are too crazy. And then we have these people. So how are the elected Democrats going to merge them?
They said that they had to quit their job because Elon and Trump are too crazy, but they don't even show up for work. They're having protests because they were asked to come in for work. So it's not that they were fired. They were literally told, send us an email every single week telling us what you're doing and you can keep your job. And if not, you're going to be fired. And so then they were fired because they refused to send an email. Like everybody has to have an audit for the amount of work that they're doing, whether you're getting paid and you have to clock in or talk to your boss about what you accomplished each week. You can't just get a paycheck without producing any kind of work product. So it's kind of crazy how they, we're holding these protests, but there's so many videos to show tonight. We're not going to have time to show all of them. So you can go to my X account at Laura Loomer, at Loomer Unleashed, and also the Charles Downs to watch the rest of these videos. But it's been almost 24 years since the 9/11 terrorist attacks, and I was 8 years old when those attacks happened. And if you were to ask me back then, or even like 15 years ago, whether I thought we would see Islamic radicals praying and chanting Allahu Akbar and waving terrorist flags outside of the White House after 9/11, I would have told you that you were crazy. But that's exactly what happened. And we have another video. Let's go ahead and play clip number 7 of the mass Islamic prayers with shouts of Allahu Akbar outside of the White House that you and I captured on video this week.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
It's crazy.
And then, of course, given the fact that I am an outspoken counter-terror advocate and also a proud Zionist, because I do believe that Israel has a right to exist, I am America first, but I also am a Jewish woman, and I am not going to stand for the obliteration and the destruction of the Jewish state because of Islamic Jew hatred and also Islamic hatred towards all non-Muslims. And so I was recognized, and a lot of these people were like, oh, that's Laura Loomer. She's a filthy fucking Zionist. She's a filthy fucking Jew. Let's go get her. And they decided to swarm me at the end of this protest. They actually were swarming me all throughout the protest. I mean, Charles saw it, and we moved around a bit because they were trying to physically intimidate us. But they actually ended up swarming us and trying to demand that we leave, because apparently these Muslims think that they own the property in front of the White House, which is laughable. So let's go ahead and play clip number 9.
One more thing. One more thing.
Like
this is the.
I'm sorry, I realize we don't know a lot of information. It's difficult.
The ceasefire.
You have like a phobia of COVID or something? Take your mask off.
Oh, just a phobia. Stop with the rhetoric.
So that's the thing. Like people
Stop
like
with
you,
the
you
bull.
love talking.
That's
You take, if you want to actually say something, have
I know,
courage
really,
to show
guys,
your
don't
face.
waste time. This is obvious.
Oh, you're immunocompromised, but you're at an event. You're at a super center event. Do you understand? Do you understand that if you're truly immunocompromised, bacteria gets in your eye? You're not very smart. You're not smart. Take your mask off. Take your mask off. Oh, everybody's got a disease. You guys all like, what are you, Munchausen by proxy? You should make your way out of here. You guys all have a disease. Gentlemen, make your way out of here. Everybody's
mental health hotline. Mental health hotline. Zionists are here. They need some mental health assistance. Mental health hotline.
Make your way out of here.
Zionists are here and they need.
Allegedly, everybody has an
It's an emergency. You got the mental health hotline. Yes, the Zionists are having emergency meltdown. Send help for the mental health crisis of the Zionists. Thank you. Mental health crisis hotline.
Doesn't the White House lawn belong to everybody?
The White House lawn belongs to everybody.
Including you guys.
I love the smirks.
Come on, let's keep walking.
Keep walking where?
Keep walking. Make your way out of here.
Let's way too much time on Twitter. Like, you don't own this area. You understand that, right?
They were cooking when they said something about that. Oh no.
It's crazy, the level of entitlement. Keep on moving, keep on moving. We own the sidewalk.
We own the White House. They think
we
they
own
own
the White House. So we have a Zionist in the White House. So you're going to be here for a long time.
Gravity wins.
We're going to be killing a lot more terrorists.
Gravity always wins, Laura.
They are.
Very triggered individuals. Yes, they are not immunocompromised, but they certainly have a disease of the mind. In fact, I would go as far as saying that they are the disease that is infecting our country right now. It's called the woke mind virus.
Now, I think it's pretty telling, like those 3 white people in there, I don't think they've ever been to the Middle East in their entire lives, but you know, F Trump.
But isn't it also interesting how, you know, a lot of these protests have like Chinese individuals, like that girl was Chinese. And so don't underestimate the fact that the CCP is sending aggressors. I'm not saying that she's a spy, but I do think it's really interesting that a lot of the organizers who are popping up lately, who are organizing a lot of these pro-Palestinian and also the Tesla takedown protests, are Chinese individuals.
Well,
and
like
it just makes you wonder if they are CCP agents or spies.
Well, what's really interesting too is like some of these protests in DC. So no matter which one you go to, if you go to like one of the crazy radical Hamas ones, or you go to the federal employee ones, some of them have accents.
Yeah, not to cut you off, but don't you think it's weird that you have an Asian girl, like a Chinese girl, wearing a keffiyeh? Like on what planet are you seeing Chinese women wearing keffiyehs like that one girl was? So again, I'm just saying that I'm not accusing the woman in the video of being a CCP asset, but we do know that there are some Chinese students who have been identified by the United States State Department here on visas who are acting as agents and spies for the CCP who have had their visas revoked by the State Department. There are individuals within the CCP who are here to specifically incite this type of chaos on college campuses.
Yeah, and you know, elected Democrats, they used to really care about foreign influence in the election, so maybe they should get down to why so many people in these crowds have like, either like they kind of look homeless, like are they paid and who's paying them, or like, yeah, they have accents. It's like, where are these people coming from? And it's so wild too, because one protest, it'll be packed. And then you go to a protest for the same thing the next day is like 15 people. And it's like that in DC. So it doesn't even make sense. So who's paying these people? and where are they coming from, and what's their true intentions? I mean, we have an idea
Well,
what their true intentions are.
we have an idea of who's paying them, but again, now I'm facing a lawsuit by George Soros's affiliated groups, the Hopewell Fund and Project 1630. So that's really interesting. And my lawyer and I actually responded to the legal threats today. So you can go and read that legal reply on my X account today. You can see that tweet for yourself. The letter that we sent back to the lawyers representing the Hopewell Fund and the 1630 Fund. But we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. I'm not going to be retracting my reporting. I stand by my reporting, and if it has to go to court, then look, it's going to go to court. And I guess Discovery is going to show us once and for all who's funding all these organizations. But with that, I want to thank you all for tuning in to tonight's episode of Loomer Unleashed, live here from Washington, D.C. Thank you, Charles, for joining me here in the Washington, D.C. studio. Thank you, Rumble, for allowing us to use your studio here in our nation's capital while we're traveling and reporting live on the ground. If you want to follow me and you want to subscribe to my work, you can follow me on X at Laura Loomer. You can also subscribe. You can follow me on X at Loomer Unleashed. Where can people follow you?
Oh, thank you, Laura. Follow me at the Charles Downs. And yeah, thanks for coming to DC, Laura. It's been great introducing you to my high quality anti-Trump protesting friends, as you can see from firsthand experience. They're only the smartest, brightest people, the best.
Absolutely. And you can also follow me on Rumble at rumble.com/Laura Loomer, rumble.com/Laura Loomer, and you can subscribe to my locals page at loomer.locals.com. And tonight, you can view my pinned tweet on my X. That's going to be my legal defense fund. So if you are interested in donating to my legal defense fund, you can do so by making a grassroots donation on my Give, Send, Go page that is going to be pinned on my X account tonight. I need to now raise a legal defense fund since the lawyers who are representing the Hopewell Fund and the 1630 Fund, who ironically also, coincidentally, I don't really know if it's such a big coincidence at the end of the day, given the fact that my reporting got Hunter Biden's Secret Service detail revoked this week. But the lawyer who is, coming after me, his name is Joshua Levy, and he also happens to be Hunter Biden's lawyer, and he also happens to be the lawyer who represented Fusion GPS, which was involved in the production of the dossier during the Russia collusion hoax against President Trump. So please help me go after these deep state operatives and these political lawfare agents who are now being propped up by the most radical left-wing Marxist elements within the Democrat Party. These people have unlimited funding. And so if you want to help me in my legal fund, you can donate to my legal defense fund at the top of my Twitter account. But with that, thank you so much for tuning in. And I will see you next week for another live episode of Loomer Unleashed. Have a great weekend.
There is a young female journalist, conservative journalist by the name of Laura Loomer.
If America's men acted like Laura Loomer, our problems will be fixed in about 5 minutes.
Chained herself to
She
Twitter.
chained her.